In this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you a bunch of Mercury farms in order to get you leveled up fast in Wuchang Fallen Feathers. If you enjoyed this type of content, make sure to subscribe, and let's jump right into the very first farm at the beginning of the game. Now, before we start this entire farming guide, you need to know that if you have more madness, you will gain more Mercury per enemy that you kill. So in these videos, I don't have full madness, but I will tell you how much Mercury you're going to get per enemy once you defeat them, and around how much Mercury you're going to get after an hour of farming each one of these farms. So let's go ahead and jump into the very first farm, which is going to be in the Shu Sanctum. So starting at the Shu Sanctum shrine, you are going to need to head to the right and head directly out of this door I'm showing you here. Once you get to the bottom of the stairs, you want to take a left. Now you're going to follow this route up, but don't go up these stairs. Instead, stay to the right and then take your first right. You're going to find a dead end. However, in this dead end will be 4 separate enemies that you need to kill. It is very, very important that you kill the enemy on the far right first, as he does have a flamethrower and it can do a lot of damage to you. But as you can see, I'm taking these guys out pretty easily. I am a little bit higher level showing you these farms, but you can single these guys out with throwable items. So if you have any extra throwing daggers or anything like that, that is going to help you out a ton. But each time you kill one of these guys, you are going to get 500 Mercury. Now, this will go up if you have full madness. As you can see here, I'm about halfway through the madness. But if you come back with full madness, these guys start to give 600 Mercury. Now, I believe one of them is special and gives 1200. Either that or I ended up killing 2 very, very quickly and just didn't catch it. However, regardless, this is a fantastic early game Mercury farm that is going to allow you to get a lot of Mercury very fast to get a leg up on some of these earlier game bosses to level up quickly. Now, this route will typically take you about 1 minute and 14 seconds. You can run this if you go back to back 48 times within 1 hour, giving you roughly about 115,000 Mercury per hour. Next up, we're going to look at a very short and quick farm in the Bandit Cave. Now, you are going to start from the shrine and jump directly off the edge, and this route requires you to kill 2 enemies. Destroy the first enemy there, as I just did, turn the corner, and you're going to find this half-dead crow enemy. Go ahead and kill him in whichever way is quicker to you, and he will drop for you around 400 Mercury without having full madness. All you need to do after you kill those 2 enemies is to run back up to the shrine, rest, and repeat. Now, surprisingly, when I came back to this farm with full madness, the Mercury acquisition wasn't that much greater. Typically, this guy drops for you 400 Mercury, but with full madness, he just drops 480. Now, I was a little upset that it wasn't a little bit more Mercury. I would have expected at least 600 for having full madness, but that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. So if you run this farm for an entire hour, here's how much you're expected to make. Now, this route takes around 30 to 35 seconds depending on your level. However, you are going to get about 500 Mercury each time you run this route, so that's going to leave you with about 60,000 Mercury per hour on this particular farm. And for our next farm, we're going to progress a little bit farther into the game, taking us to the Avian Marsh Shrine. Now, from the shrine, you're going to run directly in front of you, killing the minor enemies on the way to the main enemy that we want to take out. I highly suggest that you use the flame imbuement on your weapon so that you will do more damage to these more plant-based type of enemies. But as you get to the end of this route, this clam enemy is going to give you about 3,300 Mercury with full madness. Now, I had a route here where I had died and then I had to fight my Mercury demon and then take out everything after that. However, that still only put me at about doing this in around 1 minute of time. The most difficult thing about this timing wise is you really have to wait for the clam to open and shut in order for you to do a good amount of damage to the center of it. But after you end up killing this clam, just run right back to the shrine and then start the route over. In total, you should be killing about 4 or 5 enemies for this run. So between all of the enemies you kill and this giant clam, with full madness, you should be able to get roughly 150,000 Mercury within 1 hour if this takes you about 1 minute and 30 seconds to complete. That number can fluctuate depending on the RNG of the moves of the enemies that you are fighting. However, overall, I have found that this is typically what you should expect from this particular farm. Next up, we're going to stay in Mount Zhenwu and head to the Avian Dwelling. Now, this is the farm that I found very recently, and there's a few things I think you need in order to make this farm the most effective. First off, I would recommend the Echo of Lu Honglu. This is going to be one of your biggest damage dealers to multiple enemies in an area, and it can stun them as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to start from the shrine, run over the bridge, and take a right at the other side. You're going to find a bunch of enemies fighting each other, which is nice because all you need to do is stand in the middle of these enemies and use the Echo. This is going to cause a majority of them to take a ton of damage at one time, and you're going to get a considerable amount of Mercury from this farm. Now, after you dispatch all of these normal individuals, continue running straight for 2 more medium-sized enemies that you need to take out. Once again, use the Echo to weaken them a ton, finish them off with your weapon, and then run back to the shrine. Now, each one of these enemies is going to give you a different amount of Mercury. However, all of them combined is going to give you roughly 5,000 Mercury every single time you run this route. And this doesn't include things like full red Mercury and crystallized red Mercury that these enemies do have the option to drop. I've run this route a few times now, and each time I've gotten at least 1 to drop. Now, this farm is probably the most lucrative farm that I've been able to find, and if you do everything flawlessly, you should be able to complete this entire run in about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Now, in that time, you should be able to do this about 40 times in an hour, which should net you right around 200,000 Mercury. Now, you also need to remember there are a lot of factors when it comes to farming in Wuchang Fallen Feathers, your madness level being the main factor. If your madness level is higher, you will get a lot more Mercury from this farm, but some people don't like to take the extra damage, so they want to keep their madness level low. Either way, you're still going to get a lot of Mercury from all of these farms that have been listed. The next farm I found is in the Zhenwu Antechamber. Now, you're going to start at this shrine and run directly out of the door to the right. What you're going to find here is 2 huge enemies fighting 2 bird enemies. All you need to do is wait for these guys to start to get very close to killing each other, and then start hitting them to steal the Mercury that they are going to drop. This can be a little bit more of a challenge, which is why I put it at the end, because one false move and they can all turn on you and absolutely annihilate you. But this is a very fun and easy farm to do. Now, because these enemies can be a little bit tricky at times, I've capped this at right around 3 minutes and 30 seconds for the entire run of this particular farm. Now, if you're better at fighting these enemies than I am, you will get that down in less time. However, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get about 80,000 Mercury an hour if you do this around 14 times and keep up your pace. As I stated, this can ebb and flow depending on your madness level, but as I was killing them, I didn't have full madness and I was getting about 960 Mercury per enemy. Now, the last thing I want to show you in the video is just the build that I am using in order to not only play through Wuchang Fallen Feathers, but also to farm. So as I mentioned before, the Echo is what you want to use as a spell. However, this is a feathering spell, so everything that I can possibly unlock that gives me more feathering spell damage is what you want to do. If you unlock everything that gives you extra feathering, this is going to allow you to do a ton of damage with all of your feathering spells. I'm also using the short sword because it gives me extra feathers so I can cast spells much quicker, but it also is going to give me more feathering damage and more feathering levels. It will also give you one-handed sword mastery, but I pretty much only stuck with feathering and I stayed away from all the magic. So anything that you find that gives you feathering, definitely take that and you will be absolutely annihilating and stunning these enemies with all the spells that I'm showing you. Taking a look at my actual setup here, it doesn't matter what armor you're using unless you want to really try to figure out what your enemies are doing, but for farming I found that's not really a huge deal. I'm using the Eagle Pendant, which is going to add to my weapon's stab attack power. I am using short swords, so that's definitely going to be a must. I'm also using the Twin Infant Pendant, giving me extra stamina recovery speed, and I'm also using the Demon Pendant, which is going to increase my weapon's fire damage. I do have the Temperance of Flame on, so that's going to add to that fire damage, and per usual, the Echo of Lu is what you want to use, in my opinion, to farm in every single situation. But guys, that is going to be it for the majority, if not all of the farms that I have found in Wuchang Fallen Feathers. I haven't covered anything in endgame yet because I'm not there, but per usual, if you guys have comments or suggestions for farms I should go try, leave them down in the comments below, and as soon as I get to endgame, there will be another Mercury farm video coming for that. But with that being said, thank you for watching until the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out, and until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.